Quick question. What if I told you that the reason you can't solve the Rubik's Cube has absolutely nothing to do with intelligence, and everything to do with one fatal flaw in how it's been taught for the last 50 years? Today's guest discovered this flaw. Not in a lab, not in a university, but watching a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old fight over a plastic cube. And what he invented next will genuinely change how you think about memory, learning, and your own brain. Stay with me. This one is going to mess with your mind in the best possible way. Welcome back, everyone. Our guest today is CA Chintan Vaghani, a practicing chartered accountant, certified NLP coach, and author of the Smart Cube Learning Series. Chintan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I have been genuinely excited for this conversation because it is not just about a toy. It is about how all of us learn and how most of us have been set up to fail without even knowing it.
I love that framing already. So let's go right back to the beginning. You are an NLP coach and a chartered accountant, two professions that have almost nothing to do with a colorful plastic cube. What on earth made you think, I need to reinvent this?
It started with a completely ordinary morning at home. My 6-year-old kid and his 3-year-old cousin sister were in this adorable but very intense little Cold War over a Rubik's Cube. Both of them obsessed with it, neither of them able to crack it. And seeing that raw, unfiltered curiosity in their eyes, I thought, I want to solve this for them. Not because I knew how to, but because they inspired me to figure it out. So I did what everyone does. YouTube tutorials, cube solving apps. I studied algorithm after algorithm. And here is what shocked me. I could follow the steps while watching. But the moment I closed the laptop, gone. Completely wiped from memory. And I thought, wait, I teach kids about memory and learning for a circle of excellence. Why am I failing this puzzle?
And that's where the NLP coach in you woke up, right?
Exactly. That moment of frustration was actually the breakthrough. I realized as the method itself is broken. Not the cube, not the learner, the method. And once I saw that, I could not unsee it. I spent the next few months building something entirely new, a visual learning system that works with your brain, not against it. And it has genuinely changed lives already.
Okay, so let's pull this apart because I think most people assume they failed the Rubik's Cube because they are just not a maths person or not a puzzle person. You're saying that's completely wrong.
Completely, utterly, 100% wrong. And this is actually one of the most important things I want people to hear today. If you tried to learn the cube and gave up, please understand the system was designed for a very specific, very rare type of learner. You were not in that category. Neither are most people on Earth.
Walk me through what's actually happening when you try to follow a traditional algorithm.
Imagine you land in a new city, Tokyo, for the first time. You need to get to a restaurant. Your friend in the passenger seat starts rattling off instructions. Left here, right at the next signal. Straight for 200 meters. Left again. You follow it. You arrive, you eat. Great dinner. But the next morning, could you drive back to that restaurant on your own? Almost certainly not.
Because you were just following instructions, not building a map.
Precisely. You had auditory instructions, not a visual map. Now imagine instead you had Google Maps and you watched that bold blue line trace the route. You could see the turning points, the landmarks, the shape of the journey. The next morning, you can probably find it again because your brain photographed the route. Traditional cube solving is the passenger shouting left, right, R prime, U, F, 2. Your brain has no photograph. It has nothing to hold on to.
So when you say only 1 in 1,000 people succeed with traditional methods, is that real data?
Think about it from your own experience. How many people do you know who actually learned to solve the Rubik's Cube and can still do it years later? We're talking 1 in 10,000 in the long run. It is statistically a broken teaching model. And here is what kills me. The cube itself is a masterpiece of design. Over 450 million sold. Virtually every family in the world has owned one. It is the best-selling toy in human history, and the learning method has failed nearly all of them. That gap between the toy's potential and the method's reality, that is what I set out to close.
So you built what you call a visual roadmap, and you describe it using the metaphor of constellations in the night sky. I need you to paint this picture for me, because this is genuinely unlike anything I have heard before.
So here is the challenge I faced. Google Maps works because roads are two-dimensional. The cube is three-dimensional, 6 faces, all moving, clockwise and counterclockwise. How do you create a visual map for something that complex? What I did was mentally flatten the cube. I projected the 3D moves onto a 2D image, and when I started drawing the connection lines, linking the clusters of moves together, something extraordinary happened. The patterns looked exactly like constellations, like Orion or the Big Dipper. These beautiful, recognizable shapes floating in space.
That is an astonishing observation. You looked at a mathematical sequence and saw a picture in the night sky.
And once you see that picture, you never unsee it. That is the magic. Think about the Big Dipper. You have probably not consciously studied it since school. But if I take you outside tonight and say, "Find me the Big Dipper," you would find it in seconds, wouldn't you? Because your brain photographed that constellation pattern years ago. My method does exactly that for every single algorithm. Your hands don't memorize letters. Your eyes memorize a shape. And shapes live in the brain forever.
And you also added what you call road signs and memory anchors. Tell me about those. Because this is where it starts to sound less like a puzzle technique and more like a complete navigation system.
That is exactly what it is. So once you have the constellation, the complete visual roadmap of the move cluster, you still need one more thing. You need to know which direction to turn at each step. And this is where most visual attempts at teaching the cube still fall apart. They show you the shape but leave the direction ambiguous. I refuse to accept that. So I created 3 dead simple road signs, just like the traffic signs you read every single day without thinking. A plus sign means that particular move is clockwise. A minus sign means that particular move is anti-clockwise. A circle means a double turn. And here is the elegant rule that makes the whole system click. If you see a plus sign anywhere on the roadmap, every other turn on that map is anti-clockwise. If you see a minus sign, every other turn is clockwise. One symbol. Entire direction logic. Solved.
So you are not memorizing individual directions for every single move. You are reading one sign, and your brain fills in the rest automatically.
Exactly like driving. When you see a one-way sign, you instantly know the rules for that entire street. You don't need a sign on every inch of road. Your brain extrapolates. That is the power of a system versus a list. And then the final layer, the memory anchors. Think of these as your landmarks. In the real world, you don't navigate by coordinates. You navigate by turn left at the red shop, go straight past the big circle. Memory anchors do exactly that for the cube. When you see a specific color pattern on the cube's face, that pattern is your landmark. It triggers the complete roadmap in one instant. Not piece by piece, not letter by letter, but the entire visual picture all at once. You are not recalling. You are recognizing.
That is a crucial distinction, recalling versus recognizing.
Recall is effortful, slow, unreliable under pressure. Recognition is instant, automatic, unshakable. And once you have all 3 elements locked together, the roadmap, the road signs, the memory anchors, the algorithm completely stops being a string of random letters. It becomes a journey, a visual story that your brain can replay on demand 10 years from now without ever opening the book again.
This sounds almost like the ancient method of loci, the memory palace technique that Greek orators used.
Exactly. And that is thousands of years old because it works. The human brain was never designed to memorize arbitrary sequences of sounds. It was designed to navigate, to recognize, to see patterns in the world around it. I just translated that ancient truth into the language of the Rubik's Cube.
Here is something you mentioned that I found genuinely surprising. You talk about a gender gap in speed cubing. Why are most competition cubers male? That is not a question I have ever thought to ask.
And it is a question that reveals something profound about how we teach. Look at any major speed cubing competition, World Cube Association events. The top competitors are overwhelmingly male. Now, is that because girls are less intelligent, less coordinated, less patient? Obviously not. So, what is happening? In NLP, we classify how people process the world into 3 primary styles: visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Research suggests girls, on average, tend to skew toward kinesthetic and visual processing. They are tactile, emotional, color-responsive learners. They are already drawn to the Rubik's Cube. They love the colors, the physical sensation, the visual appeal of the puzzle. But then they sit down with the traditional algorithm method, which is essentially pure auditory processing, random letter codes, and it is like handing someone a love of music and then making them read music theory in a foreign language before they can touch an instrument.
You are saying the method is not gender neutral.
The method is essentially gender biased without anyone intending it to be. And when girls fail at the traditional approach, which they almost inevitably do, they walk away thinking they are not cube people. They are absolutely cube people. They are just not that method's people. My visual blueprint is actually ideally designed for the exact learner profile that traditional algorithms leave behind. I have seen girls as young as 7 absolutely dominate with this method. It is one of my proudest outcomes.
And what about adults who assume they are just too old to learn something like this?
The brain's visual processing system does not age out. You could be 70 years old and still recognize constellations, still read road signs, still navigate by landmarks. The visual learning system is among the most durable cognitive functions we have. I have had adults in their 50s pick up this book and solve the cube within a week. Age is genuinely not the variable. Method is the variable.
Let's talk about something counterintuitive that you teach. You tell people, don't practice on a scrambled cube. That is the opposite of what everyone would assume. Explain this.
Most people believe the only way to practice solving the cube is to scramble it and try to solve it. This is like telling a pianist to always perform the full concert instead of practicing individual scales. It sounds logical on the surface, but it is actually the slowest possible way to build mastery. I teach reverse engineering. You start with a solved cube and work backward. Many of the visual algorithms in my method are self-reversible, meaning the same constellation that moves pieces one way also moves them back when you reverse it. So you can take a solved cube, execute the algorithm, watch the pieces move, reverse it, watch them return, and do this 50, 100, 200 times in a single session. Each repetition is burning that visual pattern deeper into your muscle memory.
So you are building the skill in isolation before applying it under pressure.
Exactly the way elite athletes train. A footballer doesn't only practice during matches. They drill the same move thousands of times in controlled conditions until their body can execute it without conscious thought. I want your hands to know the constellation patterns so deeply that your brain doesn't even have to consciously call them up during a solve. They just fire, automatically. That's what unlocks sub-60-second solves within your first week of touching the cube.
And you say the 2x2 is achievable in 8 to 10 seconds? That honestly sounds like something only a competition cuber could pull off.
That is exactly what makes this method almost unfair. The 2x2 is where everything clicks. Fewer pieces, simpler constellations. And the same reverse engineering approach means muscle memory builds at a speed that genuinely surprises people. I have had complete beginners, people who had never solved a single layer before, hit sub 10 seconds on the 2x2 within just a few weeks of practice. Now, will it win you a world championship? No. But let me tell you what it will win you. And this matters far more. It will win you yourself. That moment of a guaranteed, repeatable solve achieved by your own hands, your own eyes, your own visual thinking that is not a party trick. That is proof of a learning system that now lives inside your brain permanently. And once it is there, it does not stay small. The constellation method is not a ladder with a fixed top rung. It is a lens. And once you see the cube through that lens, CFOP, OLLPLL, every advanced algorithm elite cubers spend years memorizing. They all reveal themselves as exactly what they always were, just more constellations, waiting for you to sketch them.
Let's talk about why this matters beyond just solving a puzzle. You wrote this book with children specifically in mind. We are living through what a lot of people are calling a focus crisis in young people. How does the Rubik's Cube fit into that?
I want to say something that I think every parent needs to hear. We talk about screen time as if the problem is the quantity of time children spend on devices. But I think the real problem is the type of cognitive engagement those devices produce. Screens give children what I call passive dopamine. They sit, they scroll, they watch, they react. The stimulation comes to them. There is no effort, no building, no achievement loop. And the brain quite literally becomes less capable of generating its own focus. It habituates to being entertained. The Rubik's Cube is the opposite of this. It gives children active dopamine. They must focus, they must try, they must fail, they must adjust, they must persist, and then they succeed. That moment when the final piece clicks into place. That surge of achievement is neurologically transformative. It rewires the brain's relationship with difficulty. It teaches a lesson that no app can teach. I can figure hard things out.
That is such a powerful distinction. Passive versus active dopamine.
And here is what I find fascinating from a development perspective. Children who master the Rubik's Cube often show improvements in focus and patience in completely unrelated areas: schoolwork, music, sports. Because the skill they really built is not how to solve the cube. It is the ability to hold a complex problem in their mind and work through it systematically. That is a transferable cognitive skill with lifelong value.
Parents listening to this, what age are we talking for a child to start?
With my visual method, I have seen children as young as 3 begin engaging with the 2x2 cube, and not just playing with it, actually solving it. Think about that for a second. 3 years old, an age where most kids are still learning to tie their shoelaces. The traditional algorithm approach would be completely inaccessible at that age. It is essentially asking a toddler to read sheet music. But pictures, constellations, colours, and shapes. A 3-year-old's brain is engineered for that. That is literally how they experience the entire world. So I tell every parent the same thing. Stop waiting for your child to be old enough for the cube. There is no such age. Instead, approach it exactly like you would teach the rules of a board game. Keep it playful, keep it visual. Let them draw a few sketches of the patterns. And I promise you, the moment that final piece clicks into place, you will see an expression on your child's face that no screen has ever produced.
I want to ask you about something that goes beyond skills and techniques, the emotional journey. What happens inside a person when they finally crack it?
This is honestly my favourite thing to witness, and I have seen it now across so many people, from young children to senior citizens, and the emotional arc is remarkably consistent. First, there is disbelief. They look at the solved cube and think, did I actually just do that? Because for most of them, the cube has been a symbol of things I can't do for years, sometimes decades. That solved cube in their hands is not just a toy, it is evidence against a lie they told themselves. Then the confidence floods in. And this is the thing about mastery. It does not stay contained in the domain where you earned it. When your brain learns that it can crack a problem that once seemed impossible, it starts looking at other impossible things differently. I've had readers write to me saying the cube changed how they approached challenges at work. I have had parents tell me their child started tackling school projects with entirely different energy. That is not coincidence. That is cognitive momentum.
Have you had a reaction that particularly moved you?
A father wrote to me. His teenage son had severe self-confidence issues. He struggled academically, had withdrawn socially. The father bought him the book almost as a last resort, just looking for something the boy could feel good about. 3 weeks later, the father wrote to say that his son had solved the cube and then spent the whole evening showing his whole extended family, demonstrating it over and over, glowing with pride. The father said he hadn't seen that expression on his son's face in years. That is what this is really about. Not an algorithm, not a technique, a mind discovering its own power.
There's a line in your approach that I keep coming back to. Complex problems are just simple patterns waiting to be decoded. That feels like a philosophy bigger than the cube.
It is the core insight that drives everything I do, as an NLP coach, as an author, even as a chartered accountant navigating complex financial situations. The human tendency is to look at something complex and freeze, to assume that complexity means inaccessibility. But in almost every domain, if you look long enough, you find the underlying pattern, the constellation hiding in the chaos. The Rubik's Cube is actually a perfect metaphor for life, precisely because it looks impossibly complex from the outside. 43 quintillion possible scrambled positions, that is a number so large it is essentially beyond comprehension. And yet, with the right visual framework, even a 3 to 4-year-old can decode it. What does that tell us about every other impossible challenge we face?
All right, Chintan, we are going rapid fire. Short answers, quick instincts. Ready?
Born, ready.
Coffee, tea, or just pure cube energy to write?
Just water and a blank paper. Everything I need is already in my mind. I just need to let it out.
Rubik's Cube or Sudoku? Which is the superior brain workout?
Rubik's Cube, no competition. Sudoku keeps your mind sharp. The Rubik's Cube transforms it. One is maintenance, the other is a complete upgrade.
What solve time can someone realistically hit with your book?
40 to 60 seconds on the 3x3, which at a dinner party makes you look like an absolute genius, by the way. And 8 to 10 seconds on the 2x2. That one genuinely stuns people.
One word that described the book?
Constellation. That is the whole philosophy in one word.
If you could put one thing from this book on a billboard, what would it say?
You didn't fail the cube. The method failed you. I want that on billboards everywhere.
One skill the cube builds above all others?
Focus. The ability to hold your attention on one complex thing until it yields to you. That skill is rarer and more valuable today than almost any other.
Favorite color on the cube?
Yellow on top, fully solved. Always. That is the goal. That is the feeling.
If not an author, what would Chintan Vaghani be doing?
Full-time children's mentor. Teaching kids how to build what I call their circle of excellence. Developing curiosity, confidence, and a framework for solving any problem life throws at them. That is my deeper mission. The book is just one expression of it.
One sentence of advice for a child picking up the cube for the first time?
Don't memorize the letters. See the picture behind the letters. The picture is what your brain will remember forever.
Complete this. Every child should learn the Rubik's Cube because
the greatest irony of the AI generation is this. We have built machines that never lose focus, while raising children who can barely hold it for 60 seconds. That gap is the real crisis. Not grades, not screen time, not competition from other kids. The ability to focus on one hard thing until it breaks open for you. That is the ultimate human edge. The Rubik's Cube builds exactly that edge, and it does it while making you feel like a genius.
Wow, Chintan, what a conversation. Before we go, where can people find the book and connect with you?
The Smart Cube Learning Series is on Amazon. Just search C.A. Chintan Vaghani and it will find you. But more than the book, I want to make you a personal promise. If you solve the cube using this method, even partially, even just one layer, send me that video. I respond to every single one, not because I want to celebrate the cube, because I want to celebrate you. Every person who solves it is not just cracking a puzzle. They are cracking a belief they held about themselves and that some things are just not for them. And once that belief breaks, nothing is ever quite as impossible again.
I want everyone to sit with that for a second. Nothing is ever quite as impossible again. Right now, somewhere in your home, in a drawer, on a shelf, maybe under a pile of things you haven't touched in years, there is a cube, scrambled, dusty, waiting. Pick it up. Not someday, today. This conversation is your sign. And if this episode sparked even one small flame in you, send it to someone who gave up on the cube, someone who thinks they are not smart enough, someone who needs to hear that the method failed them, not the other way around. That one share might genuinely change how they see themselves. Chintan, thank you for coming on. This one stayed with me.
The cube always does. That is its magic.